juicy insights to take with you from all of the presentations so far. And I hope that you really celebrated and made space within yourself, because this woman here, I'm not even going to read her introduction. She gave me some things. I'm not even going to say any of those things. Because this woman here has such generosity of spirit and is so generous with her priestessing gifts that it literally takes a couple of listens to receive deeply all of the things that she shares. And it's never from a fear-based perspective. It is always from this up-leveled, uplifted. You can sense and feel her passion for sharing the sky teachings in a way that empowers all of us to do our best, along with her, to up-level our human existence, to up-level our community existence, to up-level our priestess existence. And it is my divine gift to introduce this woman who brought forth, co-created the Shamanic Mystery School, who is a powerful priestess, powerful presenter. And you might not know that it freaked her out to present. Initially, it freaked her out to present. She was not a master by any means, but she held space for herself and is a phenomenal, phenomenal speaker. I give to you Miss Kaylin Castell.
Oh, thank you, Dion. That is so great. And I'm going to share here at my screen, and I just want to start out by saying that I'm going to give you a lot of information. So unlike some of our things where we've been doing the more interactive things, we'll do some interactive things at the end, but I want to make sure you get the information that's going to be most helpful in navigating at least the first part of this year. And I can give more, I'll probably go in more in depth when we do the Global Goddess Gathering in April. I'm just going to cover as much as I can now because I only have so much time. So the 2020 Sky Mysteries, the cosmic vision for a new year, a new decade, a new Earth, and a new you. Woohoo! This is so exciting. And I thought that I've shared this quote before. I thought I would start here. Our lives, our past, and our future are tied to the sun, the moon, and the stars. I love this quote so much from Carl Sagan. He says, we humans have seen the atoms constituting all of nature and the forces that sculpted this work. And we who embodied the local eyes and ears and thoughts and feelings of the cosmos have begun at least to wonder about our origins. Star stuff, contemplating the stars, organized collections of 10 billion atoms, contemplating the evolution of nature, tracing that long path where it arrived as consciousness here on planet Earth. We speak for Earth. Our obligation to survive and flourish is owed not just to ourselves, but also to that cosmos, ancient and vast from where we spring. We are one species. We are star stuff, harvesting starlight. So this is our opportunity to dive into these mysteries for 2020 and to really look at whatever the 2020 vision is, because it is really our job to bring this forth, you know, to look at this in a way that we can work with ceremonially, that we can, you know, take that deeper dive within ourselves, that we can do this together, because of course together we're going to accomplish so much more than we can on our own. So I'm just going to invite everybody again to let go of the need to understand this with your mind. And as Dion said, you might not get it the first time if this is the first time you're hearing this. I have priestesses in my community here in Tucson that have and I've been literally in a priestess community for 25 years now, almost 25 years, 24 years. And they just are sometimes telling me that they're just now getting it. So you are not alone if you don't get it, and there's a lot of information, and it can, like, we try to understand everything with our minds. So just let go of that. Allow yourself to feel into the mystery of what I'm sharing with you, and trust your inner knowing, and that what you need to know and what is going to be most useful to you, you will get. And not only that, there's a recording, so you can go back and listen as much as you want to get it. So that is the opportunity that we have to with this particular presentation. And as I usually like to do, I'd like to start out with the largest context of what's going on. And the largest context is the is currently the Galactic Alignment. And this represents the shift of a 26,000 year cycle. Or we could, if you want to get more technical, it's really 25,980 years or something like that. It's like almost 26,000 years. So we say 26,000 years to round up. And that why we know this is happening is because we can see the Milky Way in the sky, and this is the dark band of the Milky Way near the galactic center, where the constellation of the Archer is on one side and the Scorpion is on the other side. Galactic center is right where the arrow of the Archer points to. So we have the plane of the galaxy intersecting with the plane of the solar system, and the plane of the solar system is the path of the planets. So our planets, the sun, and all the visible planets and other planets follow this path. Sometimes they're a little above it, sometimes they're a little below it, sometimes they're right on it, but this is the path that they follow. And because of the way the Earth is situated in space and the tilt and the wobble of the Earth, the seasonal points that define the signs that we use in Western astrology, 0 Capricorn, the December solstice point, that 0 degree mark in the northern hemisphere marks the shortest day and the longest night. In the southern hemisphere, it's the opposite season. So these signs are connected to the seasons. And every December solstice from 1962 to 2034, at least from that amount of time, is rising on this galactic cross, letting us know we're at the end and beginning of an entire 26,000 year cycle. And so that 26,000 year cycle, that ending and beginning, means it hasn't fully ended yet and it hasn't fully begun yet. So we're in that in-between place. That's the place of the greatest alchemy that can take place when we're in that between, when we're between the ending and the beginning. And so from the largest context, that's where we're at. We could even say this started in 1926 and goes to 2070 if we look at this movement of the seasonal points, 1 degree every 72 years. And it's 72 years coming into the exact point and 72 years going out of the exact point. We're somewhere in that place. So this is the largest context, and it means that we're in a miraculous time no matter what's going on. And now when we look at what's going on, we can see that this year, 2020, is even more miraculous. So basically what we have we've got 3 main planets, Saturn, Jupiter, and Pluto, who are coming together for the first time in 736 years, something like that. And Mars will join them this year also. So we'll have 4 planets, 3 visible planets in the morning sky that we'll get to see. And as I was talking about the 0 Capricorn point, Pluto entered Capricorn in 2008 and crossed that galactic cross. And that, interestingly, was the year that we had an economic collapse, and a lot of things happened across the planet that let us know that the old structures are being dismantled. And we're still seeing that happening. It just doesn't happen really fast, but it's a big world. It's like trying to turn a big ship. So it's going to take a while for that to all happen. On December solstice 2017, Saturn entered Capricorn with the sun on the cross. So, and at the solstice points, the sun is in the same place in the sky for 3 days. So the sun on the cross for 3 days sounds like a mythic story we might have some familiarity with. And Saturn happened to be right there with the sun in 2017. Now, it's only every 29 and a half years that Saturn can enter Capricorn and be in this place in the sky. So it's the only time in a 26,000 year cycle it was going to enter Capricorn with the sun on the cross, on the galactic cross. Super rare event, like mind-blowing, amazing. That's already happened. And then on December 2nd of this year, of 2019, we're already in 2020, but in 2019, Jupiter entered Capricorn and crossed the cross, went across the cross, was on the cross. And that's something that can only happen every 12 years. Pluto's every 248 years. So you see that for them to all line up at in the sign of Capricorn is not something that's going to happen all that often. And then on February 16th, Mars will be on that cross. It'll move on fairly quickly. Mars moves about 1 degree every 2 days. So it's not going to be there too long. It'll be in Capricorn until March 30th, but it's going to be supercharging this Saturn-Jupiter-Pluto conjunction that's taking place, and it will be doing that from February 16th to March 30th. So there'll be a little bit more I'll share about this in a moment, but I wanted to just go back. I went and looked at it. Okay, when the last time these planets were all together, and it was in 1284, actually probably earlier in 1284, because this is December 30th. But we have Jupiter, Venus, Sun, we have Mars, we have Pluto, we have Saturn, and within probably about a week prior, if I had run this for a week prior, Mercury would have been in Capricorn also with this whole lineup, and the North Node also. Like, wow, it was just a super lineup that was happening. So I was like, what happened around that time? And I didn't have a lot of time to research it. I just found a couple of things that was worth noting, that within a few years of this seed point, of this what happened, there was a renaissance of Italian writers that included Dante and Petrarch. And then there was a Muslim culture that peaked in Spain also around the same time. Plus, they had plague, war, famine, and other challenges. So, we could kind of wonder what was seeded then, and what is it now that's trying to seek expression and maybe come into a greater fullness as a result, because of course we are in the year 2020 implying perfect vision. So when we have 2020 vision, we see things clearly. And in that preparation, last year we had Pluto, Saturn in the South Node, all in Capricorn, within less than 3 degrees for the most of the month of April, and actually a little bit of March and May as well. And it's a rare event that hadn't happened in 2,207 years. So we see all these rare alignments happening that's really calling our attention to this time. What is going on now, and what are the seeds we're planting? What is the vision we have? How are we engaging this? How are we being the best we can be? What is our legacy, as Dion was asking, not just our financial legacy, but also the legacy of what it is that we're leaving behind for the future generations. That would include the financial piece of it as well, because maybe what we're here to create is a whole new economic system that really works for everybody, and not just, ideally the way it's set up now for an elite few, but for everyone having equal access to financial resources and other resources and wealth. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. So part of it is clearing the shadow, and then envisioning what's the new pieces that can come. And literally we have to take down the old in order for the new to have room for it to come into fruition. So I also wanted to bring in this idea of the Yuga cycles that we get from the Vedas in India. And they saw 4 major ages, divine ages, a golden age, a silver age, a bronze age, an iron age. And they saw it as having a descending process and an ascending process. And so you'd spend so many years ascending into the golden age, and then so many years descending out of it, descending down into the silver, the bronze, the iron age, the Kali Yuga. There's a great article, and it's going to be in the classroom, of this researcher who has found that he really believes, and he has great ways of backing this up, that we're going to be ending Kali Yuga and the ascending Kali Yuga in 2025. He does say there's a 300-year transition period, so that we'll be in that transition for a while. But it's pretty remarkable. We're like in the last 5 years of the ascending Kali Yuga. Oh my goddess, how amazing is that? With all these planets and all these other things that I'm going to share with you that are happening, kind of mind blowing. Now, just one piece to know is that in the golden age, 100% of the human heart is easily available to anyone and everyone. It's just, that's the energy that's available. And then in each descending age, it goes down 25%. So by the time you get to the Kali Yuga, only 25% of the human heart is easily available. So if we get to the place where we're open-hearted in a Kali Yuga time, that's a miracle. That's amazing. That is an accomplishment like, you know, being a one-legged person climbing Mount Everest or something. Like, it's a huge accomplishment that is beyond what we can imagine. So, and I feel like the priestess work that we do has been all about us opening our hearts to ourselves, to each other, to the world, to the earth. So I would imagine that all of us at some point, maybe we feel it already, have 100% of our heart open, or we're close to that. So that's pretty remarkable. Now, I just want to energize a couple of things around the Capricorn mysteries, because all these planets that I just talked about are in Capricorn. These are the wisdom keepers, the wise ones, the circle of grandmothers, the elders. And interestingly, Socrates said, the only true wisdom is knowing you know nothing. And I feel like at the turning of a great age, like this great year, this 26,000 year cycle, everything we thought we knew is probably not true. So it's like allowing ourselves to let go of what we think we know, so something new can come in. So it's like being in that unknowable place and allowing that to be what's informing us. And literally, these old structures are crumbling. All the things that we've been taught, we can look at all the conditioning, the chaos and confusion, all of that is coming up, so something new can birth, something new can come into its place. So the question we can ask ourselves is, how can we allow ourselves to trust this process? And it's not going to be easy. Sometimes it's going to be hard. I have my days where I'm just like, what the hell? I don't get it. But our opportunity is to really keep asking that question and trusting this process, because it is designed to take us into what's next for us as in the evolution of humanity. And I feel like it's helping to evolve the heart and to come into that greater, more enlightened awareness of why we're here and who we are and what's that all about. So we could say that super Capricorn wisdom is really about all the things we've been talking about: attending to our health, attending to our wealth, attending to our overall well-being. These are the things that are going to help us navigate this particular time. And what's really interesting is that this, of course, financial wealth is very much a part of the wealthy piece, healthy, wealthy, and wise. But there's also physical wealth, mental wealth, emotional wealth, spiritual health and well-being, and the wealth of experiencing joy, pleasure, and fulfilling relationships. So I just want to tell you a little personal story that connects into this, and that is that last summer, I woke up one morning and I had this feeling of feeling discouraged, like I've done all this work and I've been clearing all this stuff and I don't feel like I've gotten anywhere. And universe, you've got to send me a sign to let me know I'm on track, because I'm feeling kind of discouraged. So in Arizona in the summer, you have to go for your morning walk by 5 a.m. or it's going to be too hot. So I was out for my walk and I was listening to the Teachings of Don Juan by Carlos Castaneda. And it comes to the place in the book where it says, Don Juan says to Carlos, all paths lead nowhere. And I'm like, great, all paths lead nowhere. And then he says, and because all paths lead nowhere, you might as well choose a path of heart. Because if it's not going to lead you, it's not going to lead you anywhere anyway. If you're in the heart, then, at least you have that. And so I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And literally about 10 paces later, I saw this heart rock in my path. And I literally have it with me right here, a heart rock. I just keep it close because it was like, whoa. Not only did I hear it was about following a path of heart, on my path is a heart. It's a heart rock. And so I took that as a sign. And part of the wealth of what we want to be energizing in this time is that high vibrational energy of radiating love, Love is a high vibrational energy. So if we're energizing that, and I've been doing a little process every morning where I proclaim I'm a superconductor of love, joy, bliss, magic, and miracles before I ever get out of bed. And so I felt like the universe was saying, yeah, you're on track. You're doing it. It's happening for you. And then the other thing about wealth is having meaningful contributions. Like, what are our meaningful contributions? And that's how we use our money, but that's also how we use our time, how we, share with others, all those kinds of things. And that if we have meaningful contributions, then we're going to feel wealthy in that way as well. And so a question that we might ask is, what activities and frame of mind feels healthy, wealthy, and wise to you? So this would be a question to journal with. We're not going to take the time to do that right now, but also just tuning into that radiant heart energy, the path of heart, is so important for us to do that. And it keeps us moving forward to whatever it is that we're maybe moving forward to. So January 10th is when we're going to be experiencing a shift in what's going on right now. So what happens on January 10th is Uranus will go direct. And so from January 10th to February 16th, about 37 days, we're going to have all the planets moving forward, all the planets in direct motion. Nobody is retrograde, not even Chiron is retrograde. So everything's moving forward. And when we started tuning into this a few years ago on a members call in the Shamanic Astrology Mystery School, and we were like contemplating, what does that mean? It feels like kind of a full speed ahead time, like a time for progressive action toward our heartfelt intentions. And yet, if everything's moving forward, it can feel like it's going too fast, maybe where we make reckless choices because there's that urgency, that push to move forward, and that can affect our results. So from February 16th to March 9th, we have Mercury going retrograde, and that gives us a chance to go, okay, now I can just like maybe go a little deeper into this and see what my perception and my intention and what I'm communicating and what I'm sharing and creatively expressing is really about. And then on March 9th, Mercury goes direct, and we'll have another 47 days of all planets moving forward. And one of the things that will be available to you is an article that I wrote about this. This is rare to have so many days in a year of all the planets moving forward. Some years it doesn't happen at all. Some years it might be for a week or two, or maybe a month if you're lucky. Like, that's kind of unusually long time. This year we're going to have 84 total days of all the planets moving forward as we're moving into a new way of being, and also activating our vision, cultivating our seeds of intention in this year of 2020. So pretty remarkable. So you can tune into that. And then also wanted to give people a little bit of a sense of the cycle of Venus that we're in now. So from November 1st of 2018 to June 9th of 2020, the main goddess on the world stage has been Libra. And there's a couple of really rare factors that are connected to this, because the previous cycle that we were in, the meta goddess on the world stage was Aries. It was the time when we had the movie Wonder Woman, we had the movie Black Panther, we had the Me Too movement. We had more women run for office and go into office than ever before. It's like how we stand for the cause, how we restore cosmic justice. All those things were being energized by the last appearance of the Venus and Aries meta goddess cycle for 155 years. So it's not going to happen again for another 155 years. It's the only time in 251 years that the Aries meta goddess was handing off to the Libra meta goddess. And of course, Aries, Libra are on an axis. So we have that, wild warrior woman then saying, okay, I've been helping to put things into place. And now you, as the relational goddess, is the one who's going to help create collaboration and cooperation and doing things together. You get to now take over. So that's the place we've been in since November of 2018. And we're currently in the ascent process where Venus is at the heart chakra gate, where she is reclaiming a healthy heart and working with that energy. So this was the first time in 155 years that the Libra Metagoddess was on the world stage. Interestingly, on July 4th, 1776, the Metagoddess on the world stage was Libra. Now, of course, on the U.S. chart, Venus was in Cancer, conjunct Jupiter, very near the Sun in Cancer. We're going to look at that a little more later. But it was like the 30th Venus return last year, the 30th Venus return of the U.S. chart, with the Libra Metagoddess back on the world stage. So we could imagine that all of this energy around the divine feminine, around women going into office, around, how we can see that something's being seeded there. We may not see all of the results of that right away, but something is happening in quite a big way. And another thing I just want to say is that in the work that I do with the Venus cycle, the ceremonial work, and also just looking at the Venus signature. So for example, we have Venus on the US chart as an underworld expression. She's in the underworld. She is just dropping into the underworld at the time that the US became a country. And so there's that aspect of what you have to die to in order to be able to reborn to something new. There's also the Libra Metagoddess, and so the Cancer goddess who's nurturing and supportive, and how do we create safe space for everyone to be who they really are? How do we do that in a way that's cooperative and collaborative in a conscious relationship? Those are things that were part of the U.S. blueprint, the blueprint of this country that we haven't really seen around the divine feminine. So this is the opportunity that is really coming out, and we've got the U.S. in its Venus return until June 9th of 2020. So that's pretty important. One of the last things that Nicole Christine asked me to do was to come up with some ways that she could help people connect more easily to the Venus cycle. And I did that and got her that information just before she died. Literally, she asked me in September of 2008, and she died in October. So, and I didn't realize that it was going to become this whole Venus alchemy piece later. So I feel like she was really energizing that. So what I wanted to do now is just kind of slow it down maybe a little bit, because I'm trying to go fast to get a lot of stuff in here, and really invite in this Libra Metagoddess through this invocation. So I just invite everybody, if you want to put your hand on your heart, on your solar plexus, both your heart and your solar plexus, or whatever works for you. We are at the heart chakra gate. If you want to say this invocation with me behind your muted microphone, please feel free to do that. And just really take this in, and you will have access to this invocation that you can say often, because I feel like it's really helping. For me, every time I read it, I feel like it just infuses that more deeply into my being, this intention of the relational goddess. So here's the invocation. O radiant and shining relational goddess of love and magic, guide us to source vibrant, harmonious relationships. Inspired by your brilliant, uplifting love light, guide us in understanding who we really are through our interaction with others. Help us to discover the gifts of experiencing happy, healthy, co-creative relationships. Help us to know and personally experience the wonder of cooperation and collaboration, magically crafting a loving, joy-filled, harmonious world. Bless us with your guidance and wisdom in transforming any remaining limiting beliefs around the challenges of hierarchical relating. So even when we're in roles of either teaching or being taught, of guiding or being guided, of helping or being helped, of initiating or being initiated, of inspiring or being inspired, we know our value is never more or less than anyone else. Help us to see that every relationship we encounter, no matter how brief or challenging or wonderful, is a mirror reflecting what is within us. Help us to know and experience the magic of seeing who we are through the eyes of another, so that we live in relational peace and balance from the inside out. It is done, it is so, and we give thanks. Blessed be. Something to also just know is that Isis, with her outstretched wings in some Egyptian mythology, was representative of the Milky Way. So I just wanted to add that piece in too. But she's also, about the balance and the balance between the masculine and feminine and the relational realms and all of that. So another piece we're gonna follow up with Venus a little bit more, but first we have to have this understanding of what it means when planets are out of bounds. So basically, here's the sun rising due east or due west, and as at the equinoxes, and at the June solstice is rising in the northern hemisphere, rising as far north as possible, and we have the longest day and the shortest night. At the December solstice, it's rising as far south as possible when we have the shortest day and the longest night. And then, so basically it's like a pendulum going up and down the horizon, and you can see the sun rising in different places along the horizon over a year. And this is also what gives us the seasonal experience. So these are the extremes that the sun can reach, and the planets can go out beyond that. So it's outside the boundaries of the sun, or what we could say is our ordinary reality. What is our established current cultural reality? So when these planets go outside those boundaries, it's like a wild card factor. There's a disruption that's taking place. And what we think we know is real is often expanded into other possibilities that are unusual. And so what's happening right now as we do this class is Mercury is outside the boundaries of the sun. And it is, will be, and so we started the year this way. It actually went out of bounds in December and comes back into the boundaries on January 12th. And actually, here's the slide that shows the dates. December 22nd, it was right around the solstice time, and then it comes back in January 12th. So every year these planets go out of bounds. It's not unusual, but the one that I really want to bring people's attention to is what's happening with Venus. So in 2012, Venus went outside the boundaries of the sun and went right beside the Pleiades. And it's going to happen again this year. On April 3rd will be the closest date of when Venus is with the Pleiades. And literally, I got to see this back in 2012, and it looked like Venus was sitting inside the Pleiades. That's what it looked like to me. Like, oh my goddess, was it amazing. And if we think of the Pleiades, many of the native cultures saw the Pleiades as a stargate or a portal to other realms and other dimensions, also where the cosmic library of the universe is located. And there's so many mythic stories and things that are connected to the Pleiades. So it's very powerful that we have Venus so close and literally just sitting right beside the Pleiades in come April. Now, this will already have happened by the time we have the Global Goddess Gathering, so hopefully everybody will have seen it by then. So I just wanted to make sure everyone had a chance, it knows to go out over, like really March 30th, you'll see Venus below the Pleiades, and each night it will be getting closer and closer till April 3rd. It is right with the Pleiades, and then on April 4th, it'll be just right past the Pleiades. So just keep that time in mind and see if you get the chance to see it. I'm super excited because it was so cool to see that back in 2012. So a rare event, and actually it was closer in 2012 than 2020, and it'll happen again in 2028, but it won't be quite as close as it is this time. So that's why we want to check it out. And then what's going to happen is Venus is going to rise as a morning star, starting a new synodic cycle, a new 19-month cycle of Venus on June 9th, and is rising with the star Aldebaran. So you can see the Pleiades up here, where Venus will have just passed. And because the planets are actually, so Venus is actually moving this way, even though she's rising and setting the opposite direction, right beside Aldebaran. And in the Venus cycle, this is probably the only time in at least 251 years that we can have Venus beside Aldebaran rising as the meta goddess of a new cycle. So it's pretty amazing. So Aldebaran is one of the four royal stars, one of the brightest stars in the sky. It's one of the magical stars of the ancient alchemists. So whenever planets were close to this star, it was the time to do magical ceremony. It was time to make talismans. It was time to create intentions. Aldebaran is the eye of the bull. It's in this like little V constellation called the Hyades. And and marks the eye. So it's our perception, it's what we think, how we see, how we perceive our reality. And Venus in Gemini, of course, has, because it's an air sign, it's all about the mental realms and how we perceive and see our reality. So what is this going to bring to us when we tune into these things? So I just invite you to tune in. I'm not going to necessarily suggest that it's about this or that, but that it's about us tuning in and getting that information and that direct download ourselves. And that's really the intent behind shamanic astrology, is to encourage us to go out and be with these planetary alignments, with the stars and with each other, and receive the direct downloads that are coming in that are ours to have, because my download might be different than your download. And to keep in mind that Gemini really is, she's the playful expression of the goddess. She's all about creative expression and freedom, having her freedom. She's a messenger, she's a storyteller. She likes to tell the stories that entertain, but also expand consciousness and awareness. And a little bit of a trickster, reminding us not to take ourselves so seriously. So that'll help maybe lighten up the energy a little bit as we move into this new Venus cycle. Just something else for you to be aware of, this is the sacred hoop of stars. And we're going to have an eclipse happening there within the hoop. The moon is going to be right here on January 10th, when it's going into an eclipse. I'll talk about that in a minute. But I couldn't make it turn into a hoop, so it's more like a shield. But these are the stars that mark the outside of the hoop. And inside the hoop is the plane of the solar system and the plane of the galaxy, looking out at the galactic edge. So it's the opposite place of where the December solstice sun is. This is where the June solstice sun rises now, for again, from 1962 to 2034, minimum window. And we'll have Venus inside the sacred hoop as she begins this new cycle. Pretty remarkable. And there'll be an article that you'll have a link to if you want to know more about the sacred hoop, because it's pretty amazing. So then we go into the eclipses, and we are literally in an eclipse cauldron as we speak. So on December 25th, just 26th, depending on your time zone, there was an annular solar eclipse, not visible in the US, or mostly in Asia. So, a lot of people didn't get to see it, but it opened up this window, what I like to call the eclipse cauldron. And it was an annular eclipse, meaning that it's kind of like a total solar eclipse, but the moon isn't quite big enough to completely cover the sun. So it doesn't go dark, it just goes dim, and there's a ring of fire around the sun. There will also be a link to an article that you can read a Nordic story about a goddess who was put into a ring of fire, and how that kind of maybe is the way they were telling the eclipse story. So on January 10th, we're going to have this eclipse that completes the window. So we began the new year with Mercury out of balance in this eclipse window, and with Uranus getting ready to station direct on January 10th, so all the planets will be moving forward. So January 10th is a very important day. And oh, yes, by the way, Jupiter is going into the morning sky on January 10th as well. So the other thing to notice here around the eclipses is that on June 5th to July 4th, one entire month. So usually an eclipse window is about 2 weeks. So we have this rare time of having two lunar eclipses surrounding an annular solar eclipse. And the annular solar eclipse is super important. So we'll have this month-long eclipse cauldron that we'll be connecting in with. I'm going to come back to that in a minute because there's some other things that are important about this, but just so you can see, on the night of January 10th, you'll see the moon rising, and this is the constellation of the twins, sometimes known as Gemini, but the eclipse is happening in Cancer, so it's a seasonal thing. The seasonal signs are different than this is where the June solstice sun rises between the twins and the bull. So the moon will be right on the edge of that sacred hoop as it's being eclipted and completing that. So there's a lot of lore that's connected to the sacred hoop that is being activated by this particular eclipse that you can read in the article that you'll have access to. So then on June solstice, we're going to have the annular solar eclipse. And what we have here is, you can see this is the plane of the galaxy, and this is the plane of the solar system, or ecliptic, where the planets go. And the sun will be right here at the June solstice. And this is the constellation of Orion, and the Celtic culture is called the High Man. And his arm is reaching up to that galactic cross. And so this is going to be the only time in 26,000 years that we're going to have an annular solar eclipse on the hand of the High Man, that the Celtic people saw as the time when there was a turning of an age. Whenever there was a seasonal, when the sun was on at a seasonal point on that galactic cross, whether it was a solstice point, an equinox point, a cross quarter point, they saw that as a turning of an age. So this is not only the sun on the solstice sun on the cross, the June solstice sun on the cross, but it's also an annular solar eclipse. Really amazing opportunity for us. And so one of the, and then it will be followed by this penumbral lunar eclipse on July 4th and 5th, depending on your time zone. And the sun and the moon are going to be at 13 degrees. The sun at 13 Cancer, the moon at 13 Capricorn. And this is the US chart in the center again, with that sun at 13 Cancer. So there's something being illuminated in a full moon effect on the July 4th, 5th eclipse that's happening. And it literally takes us back to that time in 2014 when we had a Grand Cross. And at that Grand Cross, Jupiter was at 13 Cancer. We had Uranus at 13 Aries. We had Pluto at 13 Capricorn. And we had Mars at 13 Libra, creating a Grand Cross that was activating the US chart as well. But it was also activating and putting something into place collectively across the planet. And this new eclipse, lunar eclipse on July 4th of 2020, is energizing whatever was seeded way back in 2014. So something just to be aware of and to work with, and so on. And what will happen is when you see the full moon rise, Jupiter will be in the sky, Saturn will be in the sky, Pluto you won't see, but it will be sitting between Saturn and Jupiter. And so this full moon penumbral eclipse, it's not that big of an eclipse, but this full moon really speaks to the activation of the 2014 Grand Cross, as well as the US chart, as well as this whole lineup of Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn. So something worth tuning into. Now, what we want to really think about is, what are we cultivating? What are the seeds that we're cultivating? What are the energetic seeds that we're cultivating for the new earth, or as Nicole liked to call it, the celestial earth? And it could be literal seeds, like what this person is holding in their hand, the seeds of the heart. It might be energetic seeds of light, illuminated seeds. I don't really know what the answer to that is. But what I do know is, I think I shared this last year, is that when I was hiking with my daughter, and well, my twins, and my son Ian is a stuntman who works in China, so he just happened to be there at the time. And we were walking through the hills of San Diego, and there were wildflowers everywhere. And my daughter says, "I've lived here 15 years and I've never seen anything like this." And in that moment, I realized, wow, those seeds had been waiting there all that time. They were just waiting for their chance to bloom. So we need to be planting the seeds of intention for this next cycle, for this next great 26,000 year cycle, the new yuga that's coming up, and whatever it is that is our legacy that we want to leave behind. We are the energetic garden. That it's like the seeds that we're planting and we're holding within our energetic garden, which is why it's so important that we're raising our vibrational energy through all the practices that have been shared by Judy and Bonnie and Kathy and Dion and Annette. Those practices are just so incredible, because even if we only pick one or two of them, maybe 3 or 4 of them, they will help us to be that vibrational field. That high vibrational field, where these seeds can then have a chance to come into their blossoming. So that